This is the anthem. Here's what you came for.
Welcome to the Disney Beat, a podcast brought to you by thedisinsider.com. My name is Sean Nyberg, and I will be covering all of the Disney headlines to keep you informed as you start your week.
Happening right now.
Hello there, this is Sean Nyberg, and this podcast is being recorded on the evening of Sunday, November 1st, 2020. All right, let's do this, you guys. Let's jump right in. We're going to start with the Disney Parks news. As we reported last week, the Disneyland Resort has decided to expand their downtown Disney district by opening up much of Disney California Adventure's shopping and dining areas. They will be doing this by opening up Buena Vista Street and the adjacent shops and restaurants. So this news we reported last week, or a week ago, but what we've learned since then is that the decision will bring over 200 cast members back to work in the Anaheim area. So the cast members are going to be going from the retail workers as well as the front and kitchen staff for the eateries. So, you know, this is a small bright spot in a sea of bad news for the Disney parks and the Disney park employees. So yeah, this is, just kind of what you expect when when they open up more and more areas around the Disneyland Resort, is that they're going to start being able to bring back some of the cast members. So, it's just a little bit of good news. Unfortunately, though, we do not have all great news. If we look over at the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida, this last week, Disney has laid off a large number of cast and crew from many of their live shows. Since the shutdown began back in March, these workers were furloughed. And then the Orlando parks actually reopened this summer, and these live shows within the parks, they stayed shuttered because of the inability to keep the audience at safe distances and to keep the performers and the crew from being too close for COVID-19 safety. So they've been closed, but they were still furloughed. So it was not sure, are they going to reopen these shows soon? Are they just going to keep them furloughed for a while? No one really knew. And last week, it appears that Disney does not foresee that these shows will continue will be coming back anytime soon, because last week they handed out a bunch of layoff notices to the performers and the crews of these shows. So the shows that were affected were the Festival of the Lion King, Finding Nemo, the musical, Citizens of Hollywood, Hoop-de-Doo Musical Review, Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor, Magic Kingdom's Citizens of Main Street, and The Beauty and the Beast Live. So right now, the only show that is currently running is the Frozen Sing-Along at Disney's Hollywood Studios. So, it has been it all came down last week, one evening after the parks closed. They all got the notices, and it was just a really, really sad night, Obviously, cast members are upset. There's a lot of people who are just, shifting their energy towards, the Disney company or, local politicians. And it's totally understood because, a lot of people are going through a lot of pain right now. And it's just, at the Disney Insider, we have a lot of love to give to the cast members, and especially the performers and the crew. Just let them know how much they mean to the guests. Disney is not just known, or is really not really known at all just for their rides, right? Their rides, along with the ambiance and the cast members and the shops and the food. But really, what really makes them special are these shows, the parades, the live shows that, happen hourly or, on a schedule. That kind of stuff is just what really makes Disney special. So we just really want to make sure that any cast members who are listening to this, or, people who know of other cast members, can just give all the love to them during this time and just let them know that, they lost, they were let go because of a global pandemic that is killing people and that is causing millions to lose their job. It was not due to them not being good at what they do, or that their talents weren't valued. So we really just want to make sure that that message gets out, because it's really important. So, during this week, though, it sounds like such kind of a dumb story to report on, but during this week of tough announcements about the shows being shut down and, crew members losing their job, we did get some seemingly insignificant news compared to the news of the layoffs. We did get some new concept art for a new entrance coming to the Walt Disney World Resort. So if you go to the disinsider.com, you'll see the concept art. This is part of Disney World's large upgrading plans for all the parks and everything around the parks for the upcoming 50th anniversary celebration that starts next year. So many of these projects, many of them were canceled. Many of them we're actually never going to know about because they were canceled before they even started. Some of them are postponed and some of them are going forward, like this one. And it's just some of the aesthetic changes that they're doing to freshen up the park for the hopefully surge in attendance after things get safe with COVID at some point next year. So if you go to the disinsider.com, you'll see that we have the concept art up in the color scheme, and kind of the look and the whole feel of these new archways are reminiscent of the Cinderella Castle and how they are kind of upgrading and changing the color scheme for the 50th anniversary. So, not a huge story, somewhat actually extremely insignificant, compared to the bad news about the park employees. But it is, it is some news, and we think it looks beautiful, and you should go to the website to check it out. However, it is only fitting to end this theme park section by sharing just one last bit of tough news for the Disney parks. Disneyland Paris, the Disneyland Paris Resort, closed for the second time on Friday due to a huge surge in COVID-19 cases throughout Europe. So France and Germany, the two countries, France and Germany, have gone into another round of lockdowns, which obviously for the fact that the entire country of France is going to lockdown, it obviously means that Disneyland Paris it is closed down. There is some uncertainty as to when it will reopen. Right now, there is nothing set in stone. One of the two things that will happen will be, first, it will just remain closed until February 12th if things improve. Or if things improve earlier, it will reopen somewhere in mid-December to get a week or two of business around the Christmas time. And then it'll close again after the New Year's and stay closed until mid-February. Because January does not provide enough business in Paris. Remember, the climate is nothing like Anaheim and Orlando. They get snow there. They get, real kind of winter weather. And so, they would reopen in February, mid-February, rather than January, if things allow. Right now, we all don't know anything that's going on in terms of the future of this pandemic. So, the two best guesses are either, if things improve quickly, to reopen mid-December through the new year to get that business, and then close again January and reopen mid-February, or things are just going to stay closed until mid-February. So, this is tough news because Disney does I think right now they fully own all of Disneyland Paris. They don't share the ownership with the country or anything. So it was a good source of revenue while the Anaheim park was closed, because the Asian parks, Disney doesn't own full out. Like, they don't actually own the Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea. They just license the characters and their intellectual property. And then Hong Kong Disneyland is basically 50-50 owned with Hong Kong, with the Hong Kong government. And then they also don't fully own Shanghai Disneyland either. So the fact that they fully own Disneyland Paris, it was a good source of revenue, but they are actually having to close them back down. They did reopen this summer, kind of around the same time Disney World did. So right now, the parks that are closed is a Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, Disneyland Paris. The parks that are open, is the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, and the Asian parks, Tokyo Disney, Disneyland, Hong Kong Disneyland, and Shanghai Disneyland. So not obviously, but also the Disney Cruise Line, which is a huge money generator for the company, is still closed. And, God only knows when those are going to reopen, because they had such a bad name in the early stages of the pandemic with not the Disney cruise lines, but just cruise lines in general. There's a couple big stories where there were super spreader events in the early days of the pandemic. So I think the cruise industry is going to be one of the last to turn things around. So that's not even on the radar. Cases are surging. COVID-19 cases are surging in the United States. So it's almost, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the parks in Orlando, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the Disneyland park in Anaheim, but it does lead one to wonder that if we're going to see the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim open anytime soon, likely not in 2020, likely not until well into 2021. And, it just depends how bad things get this winter to see if, what's going to happen at the Orlando parks. Now, I don't want to, cause any alarm or anything. There's no news about that. But, we just have to watch the numbers and see if what's going to happen in terms of any larger spikes, which will cause other parts of the country to have to shut down. So that's where we are at the Disney parks. We have better news in the Disney Plus news. So we were recording this on November 1st. So last night was Halloween. So, we all are still kind of in that Halloween mode. And one of Disney's biggest family Halloween movies that has really kind of spurred a cult following in the last couple decades is Hocus Pocus. Everyone loves Hocus Pocus, or everyone says they love Hocus Pocus, but it's really become such a huge movie for the company. And it was confirmed that Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, the three main leads of the movie, were coming back for a Hocus Pocus sequel that is being filmed for Disney Plus. The Diz Insider, so Skylar, who is the editor-in-chief over at the Diz Insider, he actually first reported this a month ago. He was one of the first to break the stories. But this last week, it was the first time it was publicly confirmed from Bette Midler herself that they all were coming back, and they were all coming back for the sequel that is that will be on Disney Plus. There's no release date right now that's been confirmed. But we'll be keeping an eye on the project, so stay close for any updates. They're going to start beginning filming in early 2021 in Los Angeles and Massachusetts, so we'll be watching that story very closely. We are also getting a bunch of news this last week about the upcoming Marvel Studios Disney Plus series, Moon Knight. So Moon Knight follows the character Mark Spector, a man who has been shattered into 4 separate identities, and they all come together to become the Hooded Crusader of Vengeance. So this is the big news this week about this upcoming Marvel Disney Plus series is that Oscar Isaac will be joining the series as a title character. So Oscar Isaac is best known for his role as Poe Dameron in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And he will be, it has been reported that he'll be coming to this series to be playing Mark Spector. And it's just big news. He's obviously part of the Disney family through the sequel trilogy. And, finally we got the name, because there's been a lot of rumors going around about who's going to play this character. So we also learned that Mohammed Diab has been signed on to direct the series. So Diab has had a short but very successful career with his Egyptian and Arabic films. He's got some of the highest grossing films over in that part of the world. And it has also been it was previously announced that Bo DeMeo, best known for his work on the Netflix series The Witcher. The Witcher over on Netflix, he was part of that writing team. He's been brought on to write for this series too. So the production is rumored to be starting this month, November, but nothing has been released officially. We do know that this series will be released on Disney Plus. So yeah, Moon Knight we got an actor in Oscar Isaac. We got a director. We've got, we already knew, but just re-announced that the writer. And so yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I think some of these Marvel series are going to do a lot for the Disney Plus streaming, which is already doing gangbuster business. I think right now, these new series. So it's not just The Mandalorian, speaking of, I'll just mention it here. The Mandalorian season 2 premiered. Episode 1 of season 2 premiered just this last Friday on October 30th. I loved it. I watched it. It was amazing. We don't obviously get numbers in terms of viewership because these streaming platforms are, the data's private. And so we don't know exactly how well it did, but it's assumed that it did gangbusters. It's one of the most successful, products or media movies or TV shows right now that Disney owns. So yep, Mandalorian season 2 episode 1 aired last Friday. Season 2 episode 2 this Friday on Disney Plus. You should check it out. If you haven't seen season 1, I would definitely recommend watching it. So in more Disney Plus news, we also received some exciting new information regarding the upcoming Turner and Hooch reboot series. You heard that right, Turner and Hooch. So we can report that the series has found a director in Robert Duncan McNeil. He is an actor who's best known for his role as Lieutenant Tom Paris on Star Trek Voyager, but he is best known for his work directing episodes of the TV show Dawson's Creek, and most recently the Fox series The Orville. So the series is based off of the 1989 Tom Hanks movie and will follow the unlikely friendship between a U.S. Marshal and a disorderly dog as they solve mysteries together. Josh Peck will be stepping into the role of Scott Turner, which was previously portrayed by Tom Hanks. And filming began last month and is expected to continue through April 2021. And this is also planned to be a Disney Plus series. So if you're like me, born in 82, grew up in the, my early childhood was the 1980s. I remember this movie. It'll be a great piece of nostalgia and looking forward to it, like Josh Peck. And I think this will be a great addition too. So looking over the Disney films, some big news, Alan Cumming and Stephen Graham, the actors Alan Cumming and Stephen Graham are reportedly being eyed for roles in Disney's live action adaptation of Pinocchio. So they're doing a live action adaptation of Pinocchio. They've been super successful in the past, which the live action adaptations of Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book, Lion King, which, live action, questionable, but nonetheless. And Aladdin, they've been super huge blockbuster movies that have made a lot of money for the company, making over $1 billion. And they've been a really good source of income and a really good source of re-energizing some of these older movies for some of the newer audiences. So they're redoing that with Pinocchio. So they're looking at Alan Cumming and Stephen Graham. So Alan Cumming, he's been in the business for decades. And if you don't know who he is best known for his role as the MC in the Broadway show Cabaret, the revival back in the early 90s. He also played Eli Gold in the TV series The Good Wife. And he was Nightcrawler in the movie X2, along with 100 other different roles. So you know him if you saw him, if you don't know him by his name. But Alan Cumming, and the other actor they're looking at is Stephen Graham. So Graham, he's also has a long list of previous roles, including Scrum, playing the character Scrum in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Also, he played Al Capone in the Boardwalk Empire TV series. And he played Tony Pro in the streaming movie The Irishman that came out about a year ago. It was 3.5 hours long. And so, again, one of those guys, if you don't know him by his name, you know him by his look. So Alan Cumming and Stephen Graham are reportedly being eyed for roles in this adaptation. So for the upcoming Pinocchio live film, Disney is looking at Alan Cumming to play Honest John. He's the mischievous fox who encourages Pinocchio to stop going to school, and he sells him to the circus. And then Graham is being considered for the character, the coachman. He's the sinister, shadowy figure guy who lures little boys to Pleasure Island, where they are transformed into, and I'm going to stop there because if you haven't seen the original movie and you don't know the story, I don't want to spoil things. But yeah, so those are the two roles. Alan Cumming for Honest John and Graham for the coachman. So Disney is looking also to cast some of the main roles that they haven't cast already, like Pinocchio and some of the other big roles for the film. But they have secured that Tom Hanks is going to play Geppetto. So he's already on board, and the film will be directed by Robert Zemeckis. If you don't know who he is the man who directed Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Forrest Gump, among a long list of movies that you've probably seen, almost all of them. Just recently, he directed the adaptation of The Witches for HBO Max. But yeah, he is very, very famous, and he's done some of the biggest movies in the last 40 years. So he's signed on to direct. So Pinocchio is expected to start production in April, and it'll be released theatrically. So right now it's not planned to be a Disney Plus release. The budget is expected to exceed $150 million, which puts it on par with some of Disney's huge previous live action remakes like Beauty and the Beast and The Jungle Book. So it is expected that this film is going to be one of their big blockbuster releases, and they're going to pull out all the stops for it. So we don't expect there's no sign that this thing is going to be released on Disney Plus. Obviously, things change as the whole world changes, but right now it's anticipated to be a big blockbuster release, starring Tom Hanks and directed by Robert Zemeckis. Starting, like I said already, beginning to film in April of 2021. So that's really it. We had some, a few cast members are being brought back in Disneyland. A bunch of amazing performers and crew were laid off officially at Walt Disney World as they closed down some iconic shows that have been around for, God, some of them have been around for, as long as I've been alive. We got some good Disney Plus news with some new Marvel series coming, and obviously my little note about The Mandalorian season 2 premiering last week. I just want to make a special note real quick, just because I think you almost have to if you do a podcast or write anything on a blog this week. So this podcast, like I've said, is being recorded on Sunday evening, November 1st. So the United States elections are being held in 2 days, and the voting and everything ends this Tuesday, November 3rd. So this is just a friendly reminder to make sure you vote. And if you're using a mail-in ballot, make sure to drop it off at an official drop box by Tuesday. So don't rely on the mail. We just here at the Disney Insider think that an engaged citizenry is important for our country. And it's just really interesting because Disney has made its way into the presidential election this year in a few ways. It's one of the biggest companies in the country. So obviously, it always is kind of part of elections, especially with Florida being a really important state. And a lot of people who live in Florida work for Disney or know people who work for Disney, but it's really actually shown up in this last election in a few specific ways. The moderator of the vice presidential debate between Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, she actually referenced the large number of Disney layoffs when asking them about how the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. So they actually named, they actually pointed to Disney layoffs. And in a more obvious way, actually, this last week, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden highlighted a Walt Disney World cast member for a full 30-second television ad that is being run in Florida and digitally too. So, what is that news? Or it's just interesting because these candidates, these ads are very expensive. So the fact that he spent the entire 30-second ad devoted to this cast member and talking about these layoffs in the Walt Disney World Resort and obviously the Disney parks in Anaheim. So yeah, that was just really interesting. So regardless of your politics, this is not a left or right podcast or anything right now. We're just saying, regardless of your politics, we urge everyone to get informed and to get involved and to make sure you vote by Tuesday and get those things dropped off in person if you can, and not rely on the mail. So thank you. That's what we got this week for the Disney Beat podcast. All stories can be found that I referenced here on the disinsider.com. They've got pictures and stuff, and you can see the video of that advertisement I was talking about. They're all on the disinsider.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the Instagram handle, the Diz Insider, all one word, the Diz, D-I-S, Insider. And we can follow us by searching for the Diz Insider on Facebook. We have a Facebook page there. You can follow us there. You can follow me personally, Sean Nyberg, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the handle Sean Nyberg, all one word, SeanNyberg, Sean Nyberg. And I also co-host the Disney podcast, the Walt's Apartment. We record it Wednesday nights. Those come out every Thursday. And I also co-host Disney Parks themed podcast, The Extra Magic Hour, which is released every other week on Fridays. So check those out. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be here again next week for another edition of the Disney Beat podcast. My name is Sean Nyberg. Have a fantastic week. Stay safe. Wear masks. Make sure you vote by Tuesday, and I'll see you guys again here next week. Thank you so much for listening.